And let's move on to page 6. And a rather disturbing story and shocking cases of women who take their own children's lives. And one of the things that we've been highlighting or mentioned previously is that there seems to be a need for us to focus on mental health. The number of cases that we've seen of people who are killing each other. Just recently, we had that man who woke up and killed his children when the wife had gone to what they call disco matanga, matanga that I think is gone for overnight. But now, another case here coming of shocking cases where women would take their own children's lives. And I would imagine this is maybe after, the depression that comes after you give birth. Maybe we start with you, Caroline. They need to focus on mental health.
As we talk about shocking cases of women who take their own lives, you can see most of the stories are 19, 16-year-olds. These are teenagers who take their own children. They're actually children who are taking their own children's lives. We must understand that mental health is as deadly as cancer. But in this nation, we are yet to come to grips. People suffer with mental health and they don't know that they are suffering from mental health issues. And then in teenagehood, a woman or a girl or a teenager is physically ready to give birth, but she's not psychologically prepared to be able to give birth. And we must advise this. Let us talk about the East African community. What is the legal age of getting married? In Tanzania, it is 14 years, because at 14 years, a girl is capable of giving birth. But are we looking at, is she psychologically prepared? We have the case in Sudan where there is a young teenage girl who's going to be, given a death sentence because of murdering her husband, because it is a long story. But what I'd like to say is that we must be able to understand that even though young girls are physically able to give birth, we must prepare them for the mental preparation that is needed. Even as they go to other prenatal classes, let those prenatal classes have psychological classes. Can they have mental preparation, mental training? Because a lot of women do not do this out of a willing heart. I mean, you've carried a child for 9 months. No woman wants to take the life of the child. Yeah, but if they're psychologically prepared, if the hospitals, the health clinics, the nurses are even given the equipment, even them they're trained regarding mental health, so that they're able to notice if a young girl or a young woman comes to give birth, they're able to notice the mental health signs. They're only trained to notice the physical issues.
Correct.
But can they be trained to also understand the mental health issues? It'll be able to lessen these shocking cases.
All right, Dr. Kamau, do we need to increase our knowledge on mental health and possibly even invest a bit more in terms of resources to ensure that we have more trained staff and even just awareness?
I think so, and I agree, but I would say also beyond the postpartum depression, which would be one of the cases, one of the reasons for women taking their children's lives. I think the other issue is also society, because when, how we react to teenage pregnancies and also children born out of wedlock. I think society at times can be so intolerant that when a young girl discovers she's pregnant, I think, either the family, especially if she's not married, is, puts in increasing pressure, or men not taking up responsibility when, you have impregnated a girl and she carries the baby to term, and then for some reason the man decides to disappear and the woman is left with limited choices. So I think this is in terms of society becoming more tolerant, in terms of us creating awareness so that we provide support, because this is increasingly common when you talk about teenage pregnancies, when we talk about people from poor backgrounds where they see that the child now becomes a financial burden. I think it's providing that kind of support that would help us deal with these incidents, because if you look at it and where the incidences are reported, especially in people of the low economic status. So I think this would also be one of those initiatives that you would want to see the government also coming in and providing that cushion for people. But I think more has to do with society changing its perspective on such issues.
And talking about society, I'm reminded of a story of a friend that told me, a doctor, and there was a girl who had tried to procure an abortion, albeit at home, very dangerous, and she happened to be bleeding profusely, so she got onto the emergency room, and before she passed out, she didn't pass on, but passed out, the only request she had for the doctor was, please ensure my parents don't know what happened, which of course brings into focus her mind. At that point in time, she's literally between life and death. But the thing she's worried about is not herself, but the fact that her parents will find out. So maybe there needs to be a conversation on how we destigmatize, because again, there's a question, why are teenagers getting pregnant? How are they getting pregnant?
And also, just to add, Gitonga, why is it that the young girl or the young woman has got the full responsibility? I believe if the young men and the men who have given birth, who have helped provide the seed for this child, if they took responsibility, that young girl would not be at an abortion table. Because at the end of the day, the parents blame the girl, society blames the girl. Even in church, you'll be excommunicated as a girl because people can see the evidence of the child. But the father who made that child came to be, no, they do not take responsibility. Can there be a system in our society where the men are actually forced to take responsibility? Because if the men took responsibility and these young women had support, they would not be killing their babies.
I would say part of the reason I'm passionate around this, my own mother got pregnant when she was 16 and gave birth to me when she was 17 in school. And I think part of the reason why she decided to carry on with the pregnancy was the support, you know, from her own mother and the people around her, while my father disappeared at that particular point in time, when she talks about also people taking responsibility for what they have done. So creating that structure of support and making sure that everybody who should take responsibility does their part to ensure that these incidences do not happen. Because when a woman feels desperate and I don't have a way out or a choice, most likely that's when it ends up either with abortion or these incidences of either women abandoning their children or taking their lives.
And look at how great the children turn out. I mean, he's a doctor. He's a doctor. Yeah.
And I'm sure your mom must be very proud of you right now, and so is the nation. So kudos to your mom, you know, for and I'm sure at that time there must have been a lot of pressure and stigma attached to the fact that, you know, she was pregnant at that age.
Exactly. The issue is stigma, because we tend, and you know, these things are fairly common, by the way, they happen especially in the rural areas. But in terms of how fast we react to the news, of course, it's not so pleasant when your daughter who is in high school gets pregnant. But I think that stigma and the pressure we normally put, and then the men running away, that kind of pressure, of course, will confuse the woman. I know my mother suffered from postpartum depression out of this, and perhaps these are some of the factors that accelerated that. But the societal support, the family support around that, and the decisions that she was guided in making by her own mother, by her own father, and the aunties, you know, around, enabled her to actually take care of the child, which I think would be a commendable thing.
Absolutely. Well, we congratulate her on that, and look what, you know, she brought to the world. All right, moving on now.